Georgette, I'm just going to make the same comments I made at the last meeting before you start.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yes, about the governor's executive order
Yes.
and roll call?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm gonna shut it down. What's that? Okay.
Videos.
You're on.
Okay, our video is now live. For purpose of this meeting, this is the April 22nd, 2020 Albany Port District Commission full board meeting. This is our second meeting that due to the current pandemic and under the governor's executive order, we are operating remotely. The meeting is being recorded and video streamed and then uploaded to the port's website for future public viewing pursuant to that executive order. On the phone and in person are Chairperson Georgette Steffens and Commissioners Michael Cinquanti and Commissioner Joseph Coffey. Staff present, CEO Richard Hendrick, General Counsel Jordan, Economic Development and Procurement Director Megan Daly, CFO Christine Studo, Maritime Business Development Manager Vassal, and Director of Security Dave Williams, and Deputy Director of Security Jim Keller. Chairperson Steffens, if you could open the meeting, please.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Jordan. So I officially call the April 22nd Albany Port District Commission meeting to order, and everyone should have received a copy of the minutes from our March 25th board meeting. If there are no edits or changes, I'll take a motion to approve.
So motion.
Second?
Second. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Prior to this meeting, we held our Finance Committee meeting, and so I'll turn that over to our Treasurer, Joe Coffey, to give us an update.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So Christine Studo reviewed the first quarter of financials for the board, along with some the balance sheet and some additional information regarding our budget goals and some narrative on that. The first quarter financials were pretty much as expected. There were some minor issues, variances that were discussed. We also discussed and looked at the forecast for the balance of fiscal 2020. Their question was raised about any potential risks to the revenue, particularly in light of the current economic stand down and business issues that folks are having. Their question was raised about any potential risk to rental income, which is a major part of our revenue stream. There was one tenant that asked for some potential temporary forgiveness that's being evaluated. Other than that, there were no substantive issues discussed or no substantive changes that are expected in the 2020 financials forecast for the port. The other issues that were looked at, we did an annual review of our investment policy, and there were no substantive changes to that. And I believe that reflected pretty much the content of our finance committee meeting. Christine, do you have any comments or additions to that?
No, no.
That concludes our update on the finance committee for the board.
All right, thank you, Joe. So I will turn it over to Rich to sort of provide how an update on the port, how things are going given the impacts of the coronavirus and some of the other projects that we've been working on.
Thank you. I start out by making note that our staff is still working remotely, and I have to say they've been doing a great job with handling all of their functions, as well as everything else that we ask them to do related to the port. We're still having our staff conference calls Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and in between any other issues, we're still working with a limited staff in the office, and under the recent executive order, we've obtained the hand sanitizer from the state and are in the process of procuring the N95 masks and gloves for all personnel. In the meantime, we do have some that are available to them so that everybody is as protected as they can be. We continue to be fully operational. At the present time, we have 2 ships at the dock, one in Rensselaer loading scrap, and one on the Albany side discharging wood pulp. I'm checking in with all of our tenants on a weekly basis. Either operations are continuing as if there was nothing going on with some of the businesses, or although impacted, there's enough work in the facilities to keep staff at full strength. None of the facilities that have informed me have had to experience any layoffs or furloughs as we continue through this pandemic. As far as the ships go, I'm in constant contact with the U.S. Coast Guard, the Maritime Administration. The Maritime Administrator holds a weekly conference call with all ports in the country, and we're in with the AAPA on weekly conference calls, also related to the impact of this COVID-19. But here at the port, we've implemented a new declaration of security between our security department and the ship's captains. We have one in place that is required under the MARSEC levels, but we've implemented an additional declaration of security dealing strictly with the COVID concerns and the ship's responsibilities and port security's responsibilities during this time. It seems to be going well. The 2 ships that are in today arrived yesterday, and they were actually the first 2 ships since we implemented this new declaration of security that have had to deal with it. But there's no issues, and as I said, the security staff is doing a great job over there, working around the clock with the business that we have in the port. Last month, I had informed the board that during the demolition of the foundation at 801 Smith Boulevard, we had uncovered a 12,000 gallon buried oil tank that no one knew about. It had never been registered with New York State DEC, so it dated back at least to the 1970s, and after looking at it, probably further than that. As we cleaned the tank out and then removed it from the ground, the tank had failed at some point in the past, and the what would have been the west side of the tank, the seam on that had failed. And as we removed it from the ground, we discovered a sizable amount of oil in the dirt. We immediately contacted the New York State DEC, who we had made aware of the fact we found the tank. The spills unit came down and, working with us, ordered that the dirt that was pretty heavily impacted had to be removed. We had the excavation firm that was doing the work for us on the foundation already on site with excavators, and in the last 3.5 weeks, we removed about 250,000 tons of dirt that were under the direction and supervision of DEC. We had the dirt tested. We had to take it to a facility in Hudson Falls where it was taken to an incinerator there and burned. We also pumped out of the ground about 40,000 gallons of both water and contaminated oil that remained in. We moved that to on-site storage tanks, and just this week, through cooperation with DEC and the Albany County wastewater treatment plant, we had the water put through a charcoal filtration system. We had it tested twice. It came back as equal to runoff water, and then was approved for disposal to the sewer treatment plant rather than having to cart it off site. We're in the process now, and I believe by the end of today we will have all of the water that was in the storage tanks removed from the site. And then as we were also doing that, the DEC gave us the okay to start backfilling the entire site, that it was cleaned to what I guess could be acceptable levels. And as the dirt was being refilled, it was compacted and with a vibratory roller every 2 foot of rise throughout the hole. At one point, I would estimate that the excavation was 80 foot by 100 foot by 20 foot deep. It was unbelievable how far the oil that had migrated from the tank had spread, but under the watchful eyes, we excavated until we found no more oil, and now that site is being refilled. I expect by this weekend that we'll have the stone layer delivered. The stone was originally part of the excavation contract for the removal of the foundation. So by I believe maybe as early as Friday afternoon, the complete site will be finished and ready for Federal Marine storage. We're working on getting fencing contractors in now to extend the fence lines to include the new property that is going to be under the terminal operating agreement for Federal Marine Terminal, and putting the locks on the gates, opening up that end of the terminal for maritime work. 700 Smith Boulevard, which we've talked about once or twice in meetings. We had a very good meeting. Pat, John Privatera from our outside counsel, and Seth from CHA met with the DEC and the EPA. We've come to agreements where I'm hoping by this weekend we now have the path forward that we've been searching for the last few years, and we'll get that property under the managed site plan, get the cleanup started. The cleanup we expect is going to be a very short period of time. We've been working with the former site leaseholder on the procurement of the acceptable cap that is going to go on that, and then we'll be moving forward with that. So that puts a long journey on that property to bed. Other than that, I don't have much more at this time.
Questions for Rich on any of those items? Okay, if not,
Sure, George, just one question, Rich. You went through quite an extensive description of some of the work that was getting done. Any additional cost impacts to us?
We immediately, when Pat and I went to the site, when the tank was removed and found that the oil had come out of it, Pat immediately put the insurance company on notice. We do have our standard cost on an insurance claim, but at this time, Pat's been in touch with the insurance company as this has been ongoing, and I don't see, but until I get the sign off by the insurance company, I don't see that we're going to be negatively impacted at this point, because the one thing with the information that I got from DEC was that our insurance company would probably not have any issues with settling this because of the third-party implications of the spill, as it had gotten down just to the water table. It never left the site, but it got to the water table, which DEC said they would then be a third party. So he said that in itself usually will assist with an insurance company making us whole.
any other questions for Rich? So I know we did talk a little bit in the Budget and Finance Committee. I had raised the question about what the New York on pause and the various state mandates would mean, and how would they impact our expansion project, the warehouse and terminal. Megan had stated that those projects are deemed essential construction, and then I do know, right, the expansion project also, there was a meeting at the town of Bethlehem last evening. So Megan, do you want to provide some updates on those projects?
Sure. The meeting last night with the town of Bethlehem Planning Board was via Zoom, and we, our project provided an update. We believe that we are at a stage that we are on the agenda. The next level agenda meeting that we'll be on will be for approval of our GEIS and this first level of our project, which is, I think to all of us, we're holding our breath, but we're also so psyched. This is just a big milestone. So that would be in 2 weeks. After that would be working on the seeker in the finding statement level. That would be done within probably a month or so. But we believe that we've provided all of the mitigation to satisfy the need, and for such a major project, we think that we have satisfied all of the questions, all of the studies, all of the concerns, and then put different levels of work onto each next site plan application. So likely the next site plan application that would go to the town of Bethlehem would be summer or fall, and would be related to infrastructure work that is currently in design at this point. We are making progress on bridge design, roadway work, southern access work, and all the other infrastructure design work that needs to happen. There'll be a coordinated call among the site infrastructure engineer and the works infrastructure engineer. Actually, after this, later this afternoon, we'll have that coordinated meeting to go over some of the points related to the design coordination and the permitting coordination. But that is all progressing. We continue pursuing funding application work, both at a state level and a federal level. We've been quite active with communication on both fronts. This past month, there is something due at the federal level, a competitive grant application that remains due, open, competitive, and we intend to submit in the next couple of weeks. And we have understanding that our state funding supporting offshore wind manufacturing will be opened for the next level in the next 30 days or less. And we've been shortlisted for that, as I believe that we've mentioned before. So we're gathering our work on both of those. We continue to have pretty active business development meetings. They're calls or Zoom or WebEx meetings on the expansion site, all related to offshore wind supply chain activity. I would suspect that we will be bringing those conversations to the board for review and further awareness this next quarter. I think the level of commitment that we'll need to look at and consider will be accelerating in the next quarter or so. So we'll look forward to bringing that information. We'll need to do that in a confidential manner because of competition, but also the nature of the work. So we'll bring that in the next quarter. I think on the expansion, that's it at this moment, unless there are questions or anything I missed.
Megan, is a consultant maintaining an active real-time Gantt project schedule on that expansion?
Yes.
Is that something that could be potentially, when it's updated every couple of weeks or monthly before the board meetings, maybe just be loaded up on the iPads?
Yes.
It's the engineer in me.
Well, that's awesome, and that's what pushed us to develop it in the first place. But also with, frankly, our business development interactions. And one of the big questions that they ask us first is, "Can you do this by this date?" It's not even how much or can we have it? It's, can you do it by this date? So we've been using that as a Bible for ourselves as well. And we recently updated it, and we'll do that. I'll make that note to update that on the iPad. We do consider that, whether you'd agree or not, we do consider that a little bit internal. So if we, keep it for that perspective too.
Yeah, to me, I think our explanations are very clear, but I think and having the opportunity to look at that visual on that chart would be helpful, just to get kind of an integrated picture, a viewpoint of it. And I appreciate the fact that it is closely held.
Okay, all right, thank you. We'll do that.
Any other
I'm
questions?
sure if I
for
put
Megan?
anybody, my iPad would self-destruct in 5 seconds.
I, just one other comment on the meeting last night. And again, I can't give I can't give these guys enough credit for all the work that they've put into this project. But after the meeting, I reached out to Mayor Sheehan to let her know that we finally are seeing a lot of progress, and thanked her for her help in the letters that she wrote to the town planning board, and that explaining the position that we are saying we're taking, and it seemed like that certainly helped to get the ball rolling just recently. So I wanted to make sure that we reached out and thanked her for that.
Okay, thank you, Rich. Anything else before we move on to the next item?
Not for me, thank you.
So, in your packet, there's a resolution. But before we go into the resolution, Pat, do you want to discuss what is before us?
Sure, thank you. Just briefly, this is a proposed lease on property that is currently held by William Beers Incorporated. It's a aggregate, basically an aggregate mulch developer. He also sells some equipment that facilitates construction and farm work. His company has been in the port for just over 20 years. When his lease was ending, we initiated a new appraisal on the property like we always do. Those numbers are in the resolution and the memo. Came back at $12,425 per acre. We have negotiated with him a proposed lease value for the board to advise us on at $12,700 an acre, for a total of $78,000 a year, which is slightly above the appraisal value, and it's also $6,000 per year increase from what they are currently paying under their lease. This is for our intents, this is sort of a misshaped parcel. It would be a tough use for anybody else. When you come in the south entrance on Southport Road, he owns the building and the small warehouse on the right, and then the port owns the property sort of surrounding it on the right, which we lease to him, and then across the street, a small portion that we lease to him, which crosses different parcel lines and is next to railroad tracks. And then further behind Mohawk is another parcel. So they're all together under this one lease. I'm not saying it couldn't be leased to anybody else, but it would be rather difficult since he owns the property right next to it, and that happened a long time ago. This is certainly above appraisal value. We have a good relationship, good working relationship. He always pays rent on time, and we have no issues with his use of the property as far as I'm concerned. So before you, there's a resolution authorizing Rich and I and the team to continue with the documents that are necessary to execute a lease that will be at a minimum $12,425 per acre for a proposed 10-year lease with 2 10-year extension options. We're hoping that we can lock the site up for 30 years potentially under the same use as it currently is. Thank you.
Does anyone have
I
any
have-
questions?
Yep.
I do. I have one question. As the indexing factor in the lease, is the CPI traditionally the index that's used for these types of transactions?
It is what's been traditionally been used at the port. I have brought that concern to Eileen, and she has not found another way to do it, that not to say we can't continue that discussion, and I'm looking over Christine, and we can have another discussion about it, since we will have other leases coming up. I know you and I have talked about that, and it's continued to look at, but that is the traditional approach that the port has taken, and that when I have discussed this with any other agencies or any other councils for the large corporations that we deal with, that's how they handle it under their leases at other property sites.
Thank you.
All right, so if there are no other questions, I'll take a motion to approve Resolution 10-2020 that authorizes the CEO to execute any necessary documents, including the filing of a statutory 90-day statement to effect the disposition of the parcel for the terms described above at a lease rate not less than the appraised value of the parcel.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
And then Pat, you're going to do cybersecurity update?
Sure. We've been working well as we keep reporting with Tech2. From my standpoint, as Commissioner Coffey and I discussed this morning, I'm not the most technologically advanced, and I think Tech2 has done a tremendous job in getting all the port staff up and working remotely. So they're assisting all of us from our home offices, which sometimes seem to be our kitchens or dining room tables, and they're also facilitating all the traditional work that they had been doing in the building here and throughout the port. They are available to us certainly after hours, which many of us have needed when we're working later at night with some of our meetings. They are continuing their upgrades of the port's computer system and the video surveillance networks. While they're upgrading, they're also continuing to test these systems for vulnerabilities and correcting any that they are finding. New software updates are occurring daily through patching. They are continuing to make the port and our staff compliant with the New York SHIELD Act. We probably all know that, but for the video, that's the New York State Stop Hacks and Improvement Electronic Data Security Act that was signed into law last year. That act requires implementation of safeguards that protect private information and the broadening of security breach notification requirements. As part of that initiative, Tech2 is regularly administering online training courses for all the staff here. Most recently, we all took a required online class, a training class, and a quiz that we had to pass at the end regarding ransomware. I think we'll have another one coming up in the next month on a different topic. And on another positive note, during the past year, the board and staff have discussed the port's website as a whole, but in particular making it accessible to all. And I'm happy to report that as of 2 weeks ago, I believe, Tech2 finished making the website ADA compliant. So we were happy to see that, and that will take any further discussion. This has kind of been out there for the city and county and us and other agencies on complaints from the public and threatened lawsuits on whether accessibility is tough on websites. So we are now fully compliant there as well. So that is it for the cybersecurity update. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other questions for Pat on that?
No, but Pat, I think it'd be important to reflect in our conversation that your IT skills, that was a self-assessment that you made rather than mine.
That is true.
Not given to you by one of the commissioners.
No, sir, no ma'am, it was not.
I might have had a phone call right before this meeting from a chairperson that might have said similar things, but once again, it's self-related.
Okay, so on that note, we will move into our maritime business assessment by Tony. I know everyone should have received in your packet the tonnage and longshore labor report. So Tony?
Okay, thank you very much, Chairperson Steffens. First of all, what we're going to be covering is reviewing the results first quarter 2020 versus first quarter 2019. Then I'll make some comments on each of the major markets, and then action we have been and are taking. So first of all, comparing the results the first quarter. Ships and barges, 2019, 5, 2020, 11, up 6 or 120%. Tonnage, 44,601. Last year, 83,182 this year, up over 38,000 tons or 87%. So this quarter, this year looks better than the quarter last year. Now into the specific market segments. Heavy lift project cargo up from 2 to 5, increase of 3, 120%. Tonnage last year was 570. This year it's 2,097, up around a little over 1,500, or 268%. Now, discussing a few items in particular. In March, we were anticipating 2 movements over our new roll-on, roll-off ramp, and 2 developments occurred. One, whereby the operation was changed from a roll-on, roll-off concept to a barge-mounted crane. And in fact, that particular movement will be taking place the 27th of this month. The other one is a roll-on, roll-off move of a rotor that was scheduled for March and has been moved to June. And following that, in that overall project, there are 2 other movements of rotors, one in October and one after that. No real indication of exactly when. I'm working with Bill Ring and the Federal Marine Terminal team on a number of other items in the heavy lift project cargo area. Now moving on to scrap steel. 2019, last year 1, this year 2, up 1. And as Rich mentioned earlier, we have a scrap ship in loading around 15,000 tons. So the comparison of tonnage last year, 26,000, this year 55, up 291. So 3 vessels through April versus 1. Last month at the board meeting, I commented on the price of shredded steel. And on March 14th, it was $90. March 23rd, 80. And on April 18th, it was 84. So it's a positive sign. The price of that commodity is moving up. Kind of hard to foretell what is going to happen in that market. Forest products. 2 ships last year, 4 this year, up 2. Tonnage, 17,000. Last year, 25 this year, up 7,800 tons, or 40%, 44%. As mentioned by Rich, we have the Victoria Borg in, discharging about 5,000 short tons. Next month, we have a vessel with 9,700 tons of wood pulp, and on it will be our first trial shipment of timber. There will be 300 units, and if that all goes well, our next shipment will be 3,500 units. So we're hoping that works well. Just looking down through April, last year we had 2 ships, 2 pulp. This year we have the scrap, the 1 barge, and the pulp ship. So we'll be 1 ahead of previous April, the way it looks right now. Any questions up until then?
Tony, is the April 27th, is that our first roll-on, roll-off usage of the new facility?
No, it was, I'm sorry, originally set for roll-on, roll-off, but what's transpired, decision has been made to use a barge-mounted crane
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
by weeks to come in and do it.
So the first one will be then in June? Did
In June, yes, it looks like
Okay.
June, you're right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no problem. Now, actions that are being taken, we revised the sales and marketing plan to counter the shortfall of business with our major customer in the heavy lift project market sector. And now with the advent of the Corvid 2019, we're further re-engineering the plan, considering a new normal or a new landscape in the ocean carrier and the distribution, warehousing, and supply chain. So we're making those changes and adapting, and one of the plans of action is, I mentioned at a previous board meeting, there was an ocean carrier involved in the heavy lift project sector that didn't always favor Albany as a port of call. They were dissolved due to various factors. Now, we're working with a new Asian carrier entrant into the North American market. And their newly appointed North American representatives, or their agent, is located in central New Jersey. And the president of that company is a personal friend that we've worked with successfully in the past. In one instance, we were able to secure business that was scheduled to move over a port in Philly, or Philadelphia, that resulted in 32 ship calls to Taiwan over a 2-year period over our facilities. So, looking forward to hopefully putting something together from that standpoint. We're also expanding our efforts with FMT, Federal Marine Terminals, our stevedore and terminal operator, and that's to include or increase our overall coverage and activity. FMT recently increased their sales and marketing staff at their U.S. headquarters in Charlotte, North Carolina. They added 2 individuals, bringing the number to 4 for their sales and marketing team. I've been working with Bill Ring of FMT, of course, and Matt McPhail, their Vice President of Sales and Marketing down there in Charlotte, on plans and moving forward. I devised and conducted a program covering our features and benefits, and then presented it to each of them individually so that we covered it in depth. Now, Matt and I are in the process of developing an overall strategy with Bill, and it's good timing from the standpoint because they've added 2 people. They've increased their staff by 50%. Forest products. Now, the overall objective in that area is to work with the ocean carrier handling the imported wood pulp to help them to increase the level of business with us and to help us and to have them establish what might be termed a regular service. In the break bulk and heavy lift project cargo area, you don't have regular service calls like you do in the container end. Every week, maybe somebody calls at the port of New York and New Jersey. This would be close to one because we've been adding the forest products, the pulp, and now the timber. And we're also working on craft liner board, also calcium chloride. So as we add cargo, it's good for us and good for them. And last of all, arranged an interview of Rich by the American Journal of Transportation, one of the 2 publications that focus on the break bulk and heavy lift project cargo market. And it was for their Northeast Ports edition. And just mentioned that it has a circulation of 12,000, 9,000 in North America, 3,000 internationally, and the cost of the ad is $1,250 for a half-page color ad. So, if it reached everybody, it would cost, I think, a penny. So, Those are my comments. Any questions? Okay, I have nothing else.
All right, thank you, Tony. I know we have 2 items for discussion in executive session, but is there any other business?
No, we can handle those other issues as part of executive session and come back in to discuss them in other business.
Okay, so I will take a motion to enter executive session for to discuss the proposed acquisition, sale, or lease of real property. So I'll take a motion for that.
Motion, so moved. Second.
Second, all in favor?
Yeah.
Okay. Chairperson, you want to state that we've come out of executive session?
Sure. So we've ended executive session and we have 2 items to take action on. And so I'll turn it over to Council Jordan to go through those.
Thank you, Chairperson. The first request and motion to authorize the CEO to further negotiate lease payments between the port and Mohawk Paper.
We will, we certainly, both of these items are based on the COVID-19 impact to business, and so we certainly want to work as a partner with our tenants and the like. And so I will take a motion to approve the CEO working with Mohawk Paper to negotiate for their lease.
Motion, so moved. Second.
Second, all in favor? Aye.
Thank you. The second motion, Chairperson, is a motion to extend the due diligence period of the contract for sale on the property located at 900 South Pearl Street to Patriot Tank Lines from June 16th to September 16th. Thank you.
Sure, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, so those were the 2 items that we needed, that we took action on. And then otherwise, I believe that with no other business, our next meeting is Wednesday, May 27th at 12:30. And with that, if there's no other items for discussion, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, everybody. Be safe.
Thank you.
I'm gonna put that down as a motion from Joe and a second from Mike.
Works for me. I was waiting for Mike. He was jumping the gun on me. I was good about that.
He got the last 2. I'll give you this one.
Thanks, bud.
All right, thank you guys for all the work that you're doing and keeping things moving forward. And it's exciting to know that the port still remains strong. And so we appreciate the team, and we will meet again in May.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Georgia Stefan
has left the conference.
We're all set.
Megan
Has left the conference.
Mike's in line.
What was that?
Has left the conference.
I think that's the one.